Hey guys, my name is xOctoManx and this is part 7 of my Chrono Trigger inventory tutorial series, which is Patreon supported. So in the last part we were rearranging some stuff inside the scriptable objects, meaning the consumable type and the equipment type. But the problem is that we are not able to show the correct type of the item we're gonna be having in our list. I'm gonna demonstrate this one pretty quick once it has been loaded. So when we are navigating through our inventory, you can see the type in here is still not affected. The problem with that is we would actually need to go into every type of item and need to dig deeper inside equipment or consumable, or actually check if it's of type consumable or equipment in its child or inheritance, which makes, well, actually no sense. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the enum back from the equipment panel itself and pass this one back to item in its base class actually, and also we're gonna add the consumable and non-consumable back to this one. So this is not only chosen by equipment but also will be able to be chosen by the consumable. So I'm gonna take this one out once again and put this enum back inside the item as we had done before. I also want to make sure that I have this one in uppercase letters, so it's maybe looking better. If you don't like uppercase letters, yeah, feel free to name it whatever you please and like. These names will later on show inside the inventory, so I just want to make sure that you know that. Okay, so this is going to be our enum types. We're gonna have a weapon, armor, accessory, and of course we need a consumable or a potion or whatever. So this would be or this makes stuff easier to read out what the current item type is going to be. If we need more details or more in-depth details inside of that, we can later on go into item and change this to our needs. Also in equipment, we want to make sure that we have cleaned up everything. If we have ruined something, make sure you don't have the enum anymore in the equipment itself, and make sure consumable does not have any enum in this case for the type as well. Going back to our items now, we just created beforehand, like the potion and the sword of fire. We can choose now the type directly in here. So the potion is going to be of type consumable automatically because it's the first one, and the other type for our sword of fire is actually going to be a weapon. So we just change this one to weapon and we are good to go. What we now can do is, when we are going back to our inventory UI script, we can actually pass in the data of that particular enum directly into our holder script, which we created in the last one. So what we can do is we can say holder script dot, then we have the type text, I believe so, yep, and dot text, and what we want to pass into that is going to be, of course, our inventory dot inventory list in square brackets I dot, and then here we're gonna take the item which we are currently looping through, and we're gonna take the current type, which is this one. This again is going to be of type integer but reads as a string. I believe we don't need to convert this, but I want to make sure that we're gonna test this out now. So don't forget to save the inventory UI script after you have done the changes. And as you may have seen, yeah, you cannot put this one into a string, so we're gonna have to convert this one. Okay, so we're gonna do that. Convert this one to string, open close parentheses before the semicolon, and that should do everything we need. So what we can now do is we press play and actually navigate through our inventory system. And as you can see, the first one is going to be a consumable type, and the second one is going to be of type weapon. As you can also see, it's going to be reduced in its size because of the length of the name. You might want to go into item holder and change that, well, at least a bit, so it's looking not too awful and keeps basically the same size. So I'm gonna go back to my spacer, to my prefabs folder, drag in one item holder just in case, and see what I can do to get rid of that yeah, that dragging around. And what you can see, my type text is actually kind of well, not long enough, so I just gonna drag this one a bit to this point. Don't forget to apply the changes when you're having selected the item holder, and yeah, of course, get rid of it once again. So I'm gonna delete this, And now press play once again. I should be able to see this one in the same size as the weapon text has been. So going over to that, as you can see, looks pretty awesome now. And of course, everything is still inside and scalable and all the other things. So we don't need to take care of that. Or the next one is we want to make use of the option use in order. So we are able to use well, actually not use directly, but if we are able to order or prepare everything for ordering the items in between the equipment, the inventory panel. That means we just write the little function which is helping us for doing so. And we might want to go in and keep or create some more or one more thing in this case, which is basically just blinking and nothing else. And yeah, actually remembers the position we have clicked. So what we want to do is we want to go into our inventory manager system, where we actually have 3 switch statements of our inventory state. What we want to make sure is that when we are selecting the use in order, that we're going down with our right finger actually, or with our horizontal finger, to the first position in the items list. And we are able to switch through all the items and remember what the current position is going to be. And of course, we want to show directly the informations from the items in that window at first. After that, we want to make sure that we are able to rearrange those, so we actually can take the first position, for example, or the first item, and put them in the second place, and vice versa. Also later on, we're gonna go into, when we have maybe 300 different items in here or something, that we're gonna have the possibilities to scroll through the complete inventory panel in here, and we don't have any overrides or over stretching things in there. Okay, so let's get started with the management inside the finger stuff at first. What we want to do is we want to create a new inventory state, well, for our switch statement in this case, where we want to make use of inventory use of our inventory state. So what we want to do is, of course, we say case. So in case of inventory state dot use, then we say colon, then we want to do something. What we want to do is we want to navigate through the inventory, as I already explained in 1 second ago. So we create a new helper function, as we already have done in here, so we are not messing up update too much. Well, actually everything will run an update because we need all the inputs done inside, but later on we might go into that as well and rearrange some things if we are able to get rid of update as much as possible. Okay, so I'm gonna create a new function in here, and I call this one maybe use and order. Use and order. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we are setting our horizontal finger onto the first position, or actually the selected position of items of the finger point we're gonna have into or inside our item holder, which is called item select point, and in item holder script we know it's called finger point, and it's leading to that. So what we want to do is we say horizontal finger dot transform dot position is going to be equal to inventory UI dot instance. Now what we need to go into is the item holder list we just created beforehand. We go to currently number 0, so the first item in the list, dot, then we want to get its component, which is of type item holder, which is the item holder script we just added to that. Open close parentheses, then we say dot finger point, so the finger point is of type game object. And what we want to get is transform.position. It's going to be a rather long line, but usually not too fancy to understand. So once again, we go into our inventory user interface script in here. We're gonna have filled our item holder list with all the new item holders to show us all the items in the list, so which is currently stored in here. So we go into that item holder list now, take the first item, which is number 0, and get its subcomponent or its current component, which is of type item holder, because we just added this one here. We just named that holder script to have a reference. Then we go to that and see where is the finger point currently inside that item holder directly. And we can read now the transform of that, actually the position of the game object. So that's what we want to try at first. What we also need to take care of that we are, when we have selected one option, in this case in our inventory select, and we pressed a key to say like the Y key, as we have done already in the object select. So when we're pressing the Y key and we are at the specific option, in this case the current option is going to be 0 for using or ordering things. We want to make sure that we are able to go inside our use and order function, or in this case we just switch the state. So what we call is use and order inside that state we just created before. Also what we want to do is in our inventory select, we want to check, of course, if we have put it or pressed the Y key, and we are currently on the, for example in this case, on the inventory current option number 0. Okay, so that's what we want to do now. We say if we are now in inventory select, so if input dot get key down, again if you're using a joypad it's going to be slightly different but basically the same. You just take the forward or the backward axis. Again, we're gonna go into that later on. We're gonna need the key code dot y for yes, or for putting in something. So when we're pressing that key and our current or inventory current option is going to be equal to 0, then we want to make sure that we go to the correct state, in this case to inventory use. So we say inventory state is going to be equal to inventory use. So what does it mean? Once again, we're gonna go into that use, we're gonna switch inside, and what we do is we're gonna do everything what is currently inside use and order. What we also can take is if we are using that X key in here in our use and order possibility, we should be able to go back to our inventories panel state. So we're gonna put this one in just to make sure, and we don't need the current inventory option now. Don't forget to save. Actually, we can also use the inventory current option maybe, or actually that number, to count through all of the data inside, or through all the informations we're gonna have inside our inventory stuff. What we want to also do is we want to set the horizontal finger at the very end, because we're gonna have to do some inputs beforehand, otherwise, and we're gonna update those according to a specific number. Currently we just set this one to 0 to test it out. Okay, so let's see if there's any error, and we want to go into that and see if everything is working for now. So pressing play, we are starting in our inventory. We go to the right, select now this one. I can now do left and right. When I am on the first one and press Y once again, you can see my finger is now going down to the position of the first item. When I'm pressing the X key, I go back to my to my main screen in here, and once again pressing X, I go back to the options. So what we can do now is basically we can also put in informations now inside that state to go through all the items and maybe make use of them or order them. I want to start with order, since we cannot use them at the moment because we don't have anything, or currently I don't have anything I can make use of. Maybe I go and rearrange that little dot a bit up so it's maybe looking a bit better, but for now it's just showing us what the current item is. What we also want to do is we want to switch at first between those items as well, so we are able to select all of the items we have in our item holder list. And of course we want to protect it, so we are not unable to underdo anything or overdo anything. For example, If the inventory basically is empty, we don't want to get any null references. If there are, because there will nothing inside the inventory, so we don't want to go to that state. Same, or maybe we're gonna go to that state, but we don't move the horizontal finger to the position because it's just not there or not possible to do so. Okay, and same for, we want to actually create or make use only fingers or that fingers if the item holder list has that there's a special option. As we already have in here, we just made sure that we don't have more options than we can actually tag, like the inventory options list in this particular case. Okay, so let's see if we are remembering the inventory option when we are going back. Well, actually we set this one back to 0 at this point when we are going back. What we can do with that is actually the same. We can, when we are pressing go back, gonna copy this now. Since we are using the same finger at the same time, we can actually use the inventory current option now for this particular piece in here. So we're gonna reset this first as well. When we are going inside use an order, we want to make sure that we're gonna use that as well. And when we are inside now, we want to go up and down with the A, or no, with the W and the S key to make use of, or actually be able to select items, or actually show or hover over items and return the information about the items in the list. Okay, so that's what we want to do now. If input dot get key down as before as well, and the key code in my case now is going to be W, so for the up position or the up direction. And when we're pressing that, we want to make sure that our inventory option is bigger than 0. Then I want to move my finger up. And where do I want? Well, actually, now I can just reduce the inventory current option to or -1, as we already have done in here. So we're gonna copy that and pass this one over in here. So now we're gonna do the same for the vice versa. So we say else if, gonna copy and paste that stuff now here inside that as well. So else if we're gonna press the S key at that point, and the inventory option is smaller than, and now the tricky funny part comes, smaller than the item holder list. Gonna in the inventory user interface, gonna copy this, paste it in. So smaller than inventory UI dot instance item holder list dot count -1. Then we want to increment it. So ++, so we're going down actually in that particular case. And in the very end, the horizontal finger should only represent, instead of just number 0, should only represent the inventory current option. Okay, so now we're gonna update this according to wherever we just have pressed. Now we know the length, and we can check if there is any inventory item actually in the list. So we're gonna protect all of that stuff inside a little if statement, or we can just say in the very beginning, if the item holder list in our user interface or inventory user interface of instance item holder list dot count is smaller or equal than 0, then we want to return. So we are not able to do anything. Let's see if we have done anything wrong so far, and press play. Go to our inventory, press yes to use an order, and now we should be able to go up and down. Oh, that's funny. I'm not able to go completely down now, since I believe I have some input wrong. Oh, yeah, we cannot just, or we cannot do the inventory current option to set to be 0 in that point. We're gonna only do that in here. That's okay. And I believe later on we also want to make sure that we're gonna do the same thing when we're going back to the other inventory part. So let's go in here, down. We are not able to go more down, but we can go up and down. Okay, pretty cool. So now we can navigate through all the items in our list. If we have more items, of course, we should be able to go further down inside the list. And what we can also do now is we should not be able to do anything in here when the item holder list is basically empty. So I'm gonna try this out as well. So I go to my options canvas, into my inventory, and I'm gonna get rid of all the items in my list. Say 0, press play. But also I'm stuck in here since I'm not able to do the input of the X key. So in this case I want to put the X key order before I can go to the return state. So at first I want to make sure X is still working, so I'm able to go back. Then I want to check if the item holder list is actually empty basically, and if it's empty we just return and don't do anything, but still are able to press the X key, and all the other input around up and down and so on and so forth, and yeah, putting the correct finger to the correct position is going to be after the return. Now the last part we want to do is we want to make sure that we are able to reorder items in our list. That there are two things to consider. The first one is we need to update the original inventory, and after we have updated the original inventory we need to repaint the inventory system completely. So that means all the UI elements need to be rewritten or actually recreated. At first we need the input. So if input dot get key down, and we're gonna use the key code y once again, key code dot y. When we have pressed that once, we're gonna need to remember what is that number. So we need to store that somewhere. What we're gonna do is under headers finger, we create a new instance or a new placeholder for this one. It's going to be blinking finger. I want to animate this one and create this one pretty quick. So actually what I can do is I can take the horizontal finger and to duplicate this by holding down Control and pressing D, and I name this one just blinking finger, like this. What I also want to do is I want to animate this, and so we're gonna have that blinking. So I go to Window, Animation, Create, and now we create a new animation for our blinking finger. So I name this blinking finger, which will automatically be created. We don't have any input right now. What we need to do now, we press record, and we want to add a property. And the property is basically just, we want to enable and disable or actually use the image components alpha and make use of it. So we say add property image, and here we're gonna open the color. So press color in here, plus open this one up, and as you can see the last piece in here is going to be color.a, which stands for alpha. What we want to do is at first we want to have a visible so a number of 1, and at the last frame currently we also have 1. What we can do is we can create a frame in between, so at 30, which is half a second I believe, so this is a full second. So at that point we want to create a key which is having an alpha of 0. So we go is we press in the timeline in here on that position, and we're gonna reduce that to 0. So what's happening now is we're gonna animate that finger. Currently we cannot see that, but you can see this directly in the item script when you're going through. The alpha is going to be decreased and increased completely over 1 second. If you want to have this one faster, you can scale this together down, as you can see, to maybe half a second. So it's blinking a bit faster and is more noticeable. At the same time, you can also actually grow this thing up a bit or shrink it down, or you can do whatever you want. You can even move it from the left and to the right, so you're gonna have something which the player can see. Again, you can also go in and scale this thing at the same time up and down. Maybe we want to go and stop the recording now, and we want to increase the size of that finger just a bit. Maybe a bit bigger, like maybe this one. So the player actually notice, okay, there's something directly under it which is blinking, which is showing me, okay, there is something. You can also offset the finger's position from the original point in here as well. So it's basically going a bit forward or backward from that position. So yeah, well, it's up to you how you want that. You can even tint that blinking finger to be yellow, for example, or any other thing. That's up to you. Don't forget to apply the changes to the options canvas. And once you have done that, we can actually set the blinking finger at the beginning to be false. And according to whatever the states are, we're gonna need to make sure that we're gonna set them to active or inactive wherever we want. For example, when we are directly in inventory select, we want to make sure that we're gonna set this one to false. So blinking finger dot set active is going to be equal to false. Basically, for other states, it's going to be the same, but we only use the blinking finger inside our using order. So what we want to do is in using order, directly not, but in the input, at that point we want to set the finger when we were pressing the first time the Y key, and we're gonna have nothing else selected at the moment. Then we want to set this one to be true. So we want this to be a true blinking finger. Okay, so we need to have an end state, as you maybe already heard of. So we need to make sure that we just have Y, and we don't have any selection, no option in this case. So we have null or just an empty field of an integer, for example. But since we are not able to use the 0, we're gonna use -1 instead as a temporary, or as the options number. So what I do is I say private int selected maybe int item. So the selected item, and we need to set this one equal to -1. -1 again is a placeholder number. We need to do that because we are starting at 0 at any item, so we need one which is not used. In this case it's going to be -1, or any other minus number could be used for this one. So I make sure that I use -1 in this case. So what we want to check is if selected item is going to be equal to -1, then we want to set the blinking finger to be true and set its position to wherever our current position is. In this case, we can actually use the current finger position, the horizontal finger position, or the inventory instance placeholder position. Actually, it doesn't matter which we're gonna take. So we say blinking finger dot transform dot position is going to be equal to horizontal finger dot transform dot position. For example, like that. Again, we can also use the user interface directly by that. It doesn't really matter. So now we have locked that in. We need to say the selected item now is going to be equal to the inventory current option. Since we need to store that somehow, somewhere, and we're gonna store that directly inside of that. So now we're gonna have another else if statement. So else if, we're gonna do another Y key input, but selected item has to change. We need to actually make sure that selected item and inventory item are not the same number. So and the selected item is not equal -1 and selected item not equal inventory current option. Copy that, paste. So what we want to do is we want to pass that into some pair of parentheses because we want to make sure that only this is compared. And what we want to do is we want to compare those two. So if we're gonna input if this current selected item, well, basically it shouldn't be -1, but so we might be able to get rid of it, but for now let's keep it in. So if the selected item is not equal to -1 and the selected item is not equal the current selected or the inventory current option, then we want to do something. And what we want to do is, of course, we want to reorder. We want to rearrange all the things here. Rearrange. So the next one is, what we want to do is we want to swap the item. So, or rearrange those two items. We can do that directly in here, but we can also create a little helper function directly inside of our inventory, which we are able to call from any point in the game. What we can do is, instead of adding items and removing items, we just create a new function, which is of course a public one, public void swap items. And what it takes is an integer like item 1 and item 2 as a second integer. Okay, so in that swap function, we just create a temporary item basically, with that particular number coming in. So we put or take this directly from the inventory list. So what we say is it's going to be of type inventory item, and we name this one maybe just temp item. It's going to be equal to, and now we pick from inventory list in square brackets, and now we take the first item that we're gonna pass in, item 1, in this case this integer in here. So we take that and store that in temp item. What we now do is we now swap the items. That means at first we need to say inventory list, then in square brackets the first index, so item 1 is going to be equal to item 2. So inventory list in square brackets item 2. So we swap those out. So what does it mean? The second item goes onto the spot of the first item. The first item, once again, is not overwritten because we stored that beforehand in temp. Next one is we're gonna set the second item to be the temp item. So inventory list in square brackets item 2 is going to be equal to our temporary item. So now those two have been swapped. What we now want to do at the very last is we want to update the user interface manager. So we're gonna create a new helper function inside inventory UI as well, which we're gonna call after we have swapped the items. Need to update the item holder list and fill in all the data once again. But we need to make sure that we delete everything we had beforehand. So it's going to be a public one. So public void recreate list. We're gonna call just fill list, and beforehand we're gonna take care of all the item holder we just have in our scene. So we say we go and delete all of them. So for each game object, we call this one item holder. In item holder list, we say destroy item holder. What we also want to do is, after we have deleted all the game objects from the scene, we want to clear up the list. So we say item holder list dot clear, open close parentheses since it's a function, and after that we want to fill the list once again. And in fill list basically is doing the same. It's going to take all of that stuff from the inventory list and pass in all the new rearranged data directly to that. And the last one is we want to call the recreate list function from our inventory after swapping the items. So we say inventory item inventory UI dot instance dot recreate list. Don't forget to save the inventory and the inventory UI as well. And what we also want to do is we want to now say or talk to the inventories that he is going to swap the items for us. So we say swap items inside of inventory, of course. So inventory dot instance dot swap items. And in open close parentheses, we now need to pass in the first and the second item as an integer. So the first item is going to be the selected item. So the first one we just had. The second one is a current one. In this case, it's going to be the inventory current option. This one. We want to swap those two when we have selected the second time and they are not matching and so on and so forth. Then we're gonna swap the items. What we also want to do is we want to reset the selected item. So selected item is going to be equal to -1. So we reset this one to its original state. And at the very end, we want to set the blinking cursor or blinking finger dot set active to be false. We don't care where it is. We don't care anything now. We just make it like that. Okay, let's go back and see if we have any errors. And then we are good to go and ready or done for reordering items directly inside the inventory. No errors, it seems. So let's go into that. There's our blinking finger. We have not set this one to deactivated at the very start in our inventory manager. So I believe we're gonna do that directly in options select maybe. So blinking finger dot set active to be false. If that's not enough, we're gonna do that later on from any other point, or maybe when we are exiting or directly in start. Don't forget to save, and let's try again. Oh, there might be a reference now because we haven't set it. Yep, we haven't set it, the blinking finger, in our inventory manager in here. So there should be an empty slot somewhere. As you can see here, the blinking finger is now empty. We're gonna drag this one directly inside. Don't forget to apply the changes to the prefab so it's not bold anymore. And press play. So now everything is okay. The blinking finger is offline. We're gonna press Y. We can choose rather this one or this one. But as you can see, we don't have any items inside, so we're gonna be able or not able to do anything. What we want to do is we want to pass in pretty quick some items in our inventory so we can see what's going on. So I'm gonna implement, let's see, where are my prefabs. Gonna implement a potion. We're gonna have maybe 20, and we're gonna have a sword of fire. Maybe we're gonna have 5 of those. Gonna press play. And when we are going to that, we have, so you can see we have now our 20 potions and our 5 sword of fire. We'll press Y. Well, like that. So now we are able to go up and down into that. And now when I press the Y button once again, you see there is a blinking finger. And we can now put the other finger to wherever we want. If it's the same function, nothing is happening. It still keeps blinking. We need to take care of this one later on because we want to use that or get the information. But when I'm now on the potion and press Y, I swap both items. So the item list itself, I can show you this one directly in the options canvas. The item list now has the sword of fire in the first equipment slot with its 5 numbers, and the second one now has the options. We can repeat this once again, so we press Y, this is blinking, and we can choose or maybe put this directly back to wherever we want to. And if we have later on 100 different items, we are able to manipulate those through the complete item list. Thanks for watching the tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thumb this video up if you like it, and feel free to become my patron or donate by using PayPal to support me and my channel in the future. All links will be below in the description. See you in the next tutorial. Bye bye.